I'm with Elaine Newman from Christian Friends of Israel, Canada. Now, you've been looking after the Canadian side since November 2020. Why did you want to get involved with CFI?
I actually started with CFI in 2014 as an area rep in Canada. And my husband is a truck driver, and I wanted to be involved with a missions group and be actively involved instead of just donating. And so I prayed. Uh, and asked the Lord to lead me to some missions group. We had supported missions in Haiti and different places around the world, and so I prayed and asked the Lord to lead me to a missions group that I could be involved with. And so I went to Mission Fest in Edmonton, and um, I had kind of laid a fleece out before the Lord, and I said, if this is going to be the right missions group for me to be involved with, then give me some sort of confirmation that I should be there. And so I did the Jericho walk that day. I think I walked around the missions hall about 6 times, 7 times, and I stopped at this table with the big Israeli flag, and there was an older lady sitting there, and I stopped to talk to her. We had previously been to Israel 3 times, once in 2004 and again in 2012 and 2013. And we had just actually got back from Israel not that long before I went to Edmonton. So I stopped to talk to her, and here they were, the leaders, her and her husband, the directors of Christian Friends of Israel. And so we were chatting, and her husband came up, started talking to me, and asked me if I would like to be involved with Christian Friends of Israel as an area rep. And I said, yeah, maybe, whatever. And so we started talking. Here he had pastored in our hometown of Lloydminster. Um, he had also pastored in a town in Manitoba where my mother's family had first immigrated to when they came to Canada back in the early 1900s. Now, what are the chances that he's going to have pastored in Lloydminster and also in this town in Manitoba? And so I thought, yeah, I think that's confirmation from the Lord.
Well,
And so I became an area rep and for 6 years, and then I became the director in 2020.
so did you actually
So that's
understand anything about Israel and know the spiritual battle that there is for Israel and, that Genesis, I will bless those. Did you understand all that significance at the time when you joined?
um well, I knew that Israel had been through a number of conflicts and wars. I don't think I really knew the scriptural, the scriptures that a lot
Significant.
of them that pertained to Israel, but
Yeah.
like we had been there 3 times, and like the first time we went, it was at the end of an intifada, and so there was a great deal of tenseness, kind of. There was still peace in Jerusalem, but kind of we were at the end of an intifada, so we had to have security when we went to Bethlehem and all that kind of thing. And yeah, so we had explored Israel. I'd sat beside a man on a plane on the way over there that was talking about all the wars he had been in. And I mean, here in Canada, the last war that we've really been involved with is World War II. So for me to sit beside this man who was talking about all these wars he had been in, I thought, wow, like, just wow kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I mean, Jesus, we had been Christians and going to church, and so Jesus was obviously born there, did his miracles there, was crucified and resurrected there, and that's where he will return to, right? So um I guess I knew that God had his hand on Israel, right?
So you visited Israel. What was it like visiting Israel for you? And have you visited the work of CFI in Israel as well, in Jerusalem?
Yes. Um, so we had done tours of Israel 3 times previous to me joining CFI. And I was very happy to be working with a ministry that worked with Israel. And when we joined CFI and went to Israel, they had a conference at that time and a tour, and we toured so many places that you wouldn't go on a normal Israel tour. Like, we went to IDF bases and prayed with the soldiers. We went up to the northern border and down very close to the Gaza border. And we went to Hebron, which was a tense place to go to, but we went there and saw the tombs of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so there was just kind of a different vibe, like it wasn't just that you were going to visit churches, which was great. I mean, I learned so much the first time I came home. I felt like my mind was going to explode. But with CFI, it was much more of this is what's happening in the land now. And so it made it kind of more personal, if you would say, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What do you actually do for CFI in Canada?
Well, I've been the director since 2020, so we mainly distribute the For Zion's Sake magazines and um, raise an awareness of Israel within Canada, which is much needed, and collect donations to send to CFI in Jerusalem to help them with their projects.
So do you get to travel through Canada and visit churches and speak about the work in the different churches?
Um, we've traveled from coast to coast. My husband has relatives in British Columbia in the Vancouver, Victoria area. So we've traveled throughout Alberta, British Columbia, all the way across Canada. I have a cousin that lives in New Brunswick on the East Coast. And so we've traveled through the 10 provinces, 2 territories, and haven't made it to the third territory yet. But and so we've taken magazines and distributed them along our way and visited churches. And yeah, um, it's quite a mix. I don't know if it's like that in every country, but it's quite a mix of people that support Israel and people that don't support Israel. And I think there was a shift a certain amount here during the war, actually, since 2023.
Yeah.
To begin with, during the war, there was a lot of opposition to Israel because the media, the news outlets portrayed all the devastation in Gaza and that Israel was um, not a good country for doing that. Or
Mm.
they were, but since all everything has come out about Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and everything, I think there's been a certain amount of a shift happen, that fewer people speak out against Israel, and they not that they maybe there's more that support Israel, but there's just kind of an awakening happening, I think.
Yeah. Is there a problem with replacement theology in the churches in Canada?
Um, yes, the churches concentrate on Jesus the as the savior, and kind of that he's all in all, and they a lot don't emphasize Israel. Um, So I guess you would say that there is replacement theology there, and But I think it's a certain amount of blindness. We're a long ways away from Israel here. And um, so there is getting to be more and more people that have traveled to Israel, but there's a lot that haven't. And so they kind of sit on the fence, and don't know which way to go.
Yeah, yeah. How is the Canadian government when it comes to Israel?
Well, um, that's kind of another story. We've had a lot of immigrants come into Canada within the last 10, 15 years, or maybe longer. And our previous government under Justin Trudeau emphasized bringing in a lot of immigrants from Syria and um, so, and they have swayed maybe the government a bit.
Mm,
And so the government has given a lot of money to, millions of dollars to Syria, and they look at it as like a humanitarian thing, but they don't realize that God put his hand on Israel, right?
yeah,
And so Israel needs to be supported, and they have um, supported Palestine.
mm,
And so, and I think it's partly anyway, a lot to do with the immigrants that have moved in. We've been having protests across the country,
yeah,
pro-Palestinian protests and so on, and not as much, though, not as many as what there was during the Gaza war
yeah,
in the last couple years. So,
yeah. Now, your country, Canada, recognized a Palestinian state on September the 21st, 2025, just like the UK did. How did you feel when you actually heard your nation recognizing a Palestinian state?
well, it was quite sickening, honestly. You felt um, maybe that you'd been betrayed by the government.
Mm,
And but Canada is a very divided nation right now, and the opposition leader, the conservative opposition leader, stands with Israel and supports Israel. And when he was running for prime minister, he openly supported Israel. And the Liberal Party that's leading Canada right now supports the Palestinian state. And the election was very close. Mark Carney won by just a small margin. And and I mean, there was lots of prayer went into that, into the election. And so the West is more conservative and they support Pierre Poilievre, which supports Israel. The East is more liberal and they support Mark Carney, who supports Palestine. So it's yeah,
it seems strange that you've got a country in Canada and one side supports Israel and one side supports Palestine. Yeah, but
yeah.
the fact that they've actually there's been the biggest terrorist attack in Israel on October the 7th, 2023. And now you have countries like Canada and the UK recognizing a Palestinian state. Do you feel this is rewarding terror? And has the government actually explained, well, these are the borders for Palestine? Or is it just, just something to say, something to talk about?
Well, in Eastern Canada, in Toronto, Montreal, I think is probably another area, which are the largest populations in Canada. And they basically sway the elections in Canada, right? So in Toronto, you have a lot of protests, pro-Palestinian protests, and I believe that the Muslim immigrants that have moved into Canada have swayed the politicians down there to support Palestine.
Yeah.
And but there again, where is their heart in connection to God? Where is their heart in connection to the church? God has placed his hand there. I mean, those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse Israel will be cursed. So yeah, I guess it's a question of leaders and where their hearts are. Well, and I suppose their constituencies, right? And yeah.
Do you think this actually brings a curse on the nation of Canada because they recognized a Palestinian state, or a curse on the leaders because of this?
Well, I guess I thought when we've always been very close with the US
Mm.
as a country because we share such a long border. And when Canada's leaders start giving millions of dollars, like to Syria and start supporting Palestine and don't support Israel, then I believe that led to a certain amount of us not getting along with the United States and with Donald Trump putting tariffs. Maybe he would have put tariffs anyway, but I think if we would have supported Israel wholeheartedly, that our relationship with the United States would be better. And therefore it probably would have eased up on some of the tariffs and that kind of thing. So in that way, I think we have brought a certain amount of curse per se. Saying that, I mean, Toronto has a lot of immigrants, a lot of Palestinian, pro-Palestinian people, but Toronto also has a large population of Jewish people. They have a lot of large population of Christians. The first 3 tours that we came to Israel with, the leaders of those tours were from Toronto. And so the church is huge there. The Jewish population is large, but it seems like the pro-Palestinian sector is fighting back, and so maybe it's like a spiritual warfare.
Mm. Has there been a rise in anti-Semitism in Canada, and are you seeing the hate marches on the streets of Canada?
Just recently, Toronto had 2 bakeries targeted, 2 Jewish bakeries targeted. During the war, especially like in 2024, 2025, maybe, there was a lot of protests in Vancouver and across Canada. Since the war has ended more or less, that I think the pro-Palestinian protests and anti-Semitism is more targeted in Toronto and perhaps Montreal, but Toronto for sure. They just in the last couple of days, it's been out of control there, right? But I mean, Toronto is a huge city. It's not as big as London or something like that, but you've still got 3 or 4 million people there. And there was protest down there a year, 2 years ago, and we had a Mission Fest in Toronto. And Steve and I went down there expecting, not knowing what to expect, and we never saw any protests at all, even though they were happening at the time, right? Because the city is so huge, and the media portrays it as a big thing, but it's in, one area or whatever of Toronto. So yeah.
Do Jews feel safe in Canada at the moment?
Yes. Like we live in a rural area though. And the population of our local town is 30,000 people. We're in an oil area, which might not go over well with the British, but we're, yeah, the oil production here is huge, and the Edmonton area is huge. And we feel, yeah, relatively safe. I think, um, you know, the Muslim population has definitely grown in the last 10, 15 years, along with the Sikh community, the East Indian Sikh community. So we do have a lot of immigrant population here. But generally speaking, I think we feel safe.
Mhm. Now, just recently, representatives from CFI came from around the world to Israel for their 40th anniversary. Were you able to come and celebrate in that?
Yes, we came to Israel in November of 2025, and Jerusalem was so peaceful. We didn't really expect that, at the end of the war. And we did a tour with CFI to southern Israel, where all these atrocities had occurred and where this massacre had occurred. And we visited an army base there and met a girl that was a survivor of October 7th and had hid under a tank for hours, and um, met a lot of the parents, or not a lot of the parents, but some of the parents that had their children killed in that war on October the 7th. And, it's just mind blowing, incomprehensible, I guess, that something like that could happen and that people could actually get away with doing that for so long, like, I mean, we share a big border with the United States, and we couldn't even imagine if something like that happened between us and the States, like, and so very tragic. And um we just pray for, Donald Trump to have wisdom, I guess, and that Hamas and Hezbollah will be destroyed, and so that Israel can have peace on their borders, right?
So you're having a celebration time, 40 years of Christian Friends of Israel, but also it's a very somber time going down and visiting like the Nova Festival and seeing where this tragedy took place.
Yes. Yeah, it was great being in Israel, and there was a lot of representatives from around the nations came, because CFI is in a lot of countries in the world, huh? And so it was good to renew friendships with and meet the new reps, and there's several of the reps from France and England and Switzerland, Germany, that we've known ever since 2015, basically. So it was good to meet with them after all of this had happened, and just um, have a meeting together.
Yeah. What is your prayer for Israel and your prayer for Canada and the Jewish people at this time?
Well, I guess, God tells us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And so I guess he said that with a reason.
Mm.
So I guess I pray for Israel to be saved, to come to the knowledge of Yeshua as their Messiah, and believe in um, in Jesus, in Yeshua Messiah as their Savior and Lord. And we know that we're grafted into that tree, into that olive tree. Um, but many of the Jews need to come to knowledge of the Savior, I believe, knowledge of Yeshua as their Messiah.
What's
And
your web?
for Can
Sorry,
yeah,
carry on. Sorry.
and Canada, I guess it would be a similar prayer. I mean, God placed his hand on Israel, but that Canada would be saved too. That we have people that are still, don't go to church. They don't know what they believe, and so I just pray for Canadians to come to a knowledge that uh, Jesus is their savior, but also that Israel is where Jesus lived and breathed and will come back to, and that Canada needs to recognize Israel as the promised land, as God's holy land, and that it's only through Israel that we're saved, really.
What's your website for CFI Canada for people who'd like to know more about the work that you do?
www.cfi-canada.org.
Well, Elaine, thank you very much for sharing today.
Well, thank you for doing this interview, and we just pray God's blessing upon you.